Hello, Colts Nation, and what is up, No Horse and Family? Welcome back to another episode of the No Horse Around podcast. As always, I am one of two dudes talking Colts. I am one of your hosts, Stephen Burton, and as always, we are brought to you by Wager Wire, a once in a generation sports betting app that's going to change the face of sports betting, period. You can get in and out of future bets. You can get in and out of parlays, which is, I think, what is the coolest thing. Maybe you have a 2-team parlay. Maybe you have a 3-team parlay. You've hit on 2 of them, but you think that last one's going to bust. You can get out now. Go follow them over at WagerWire on Twitter. Check out their Twitter spaces too. By fans, for fans. Pretty cool stuff. And then while you're at it, go over wagerwire.com, drop in your email address because the app is coming very, very soon. And we don't want you guys to miss it. So I thought today I'd jump on here real quick because we had a little bit of news. We had a very large contingent of Colts personnel go to Lexington to privately work out Will Levis, which Will Levis has seemed to become this buzzword for Colts Nation, for the draft in general. And I kind of wanted to come on here and make a case. We've heard a ton of cases as to why you draft Anthony Richardson. We haven't heard a lot about why the Colts could and should draft Will Levis, right? I mean, look who showed up at the workout today, right, that we know of. You had Ballard, Steichen, Jim Bob Cooter. You had the QB coach. You had Ed Dodds, and you had the director of college scouting. I can't remember his name, but you had all those people go to Lexington to watch Will Levis. So we can say it's a smoke screen, but it's not. They are legitimately interested in Will Levis, and they're doing their research. What I've learned throughout this process this year, when we're looking at quarterbacks, is I can argue for either one. They all have warts, they all have blemishes, and it's just a preference on which one you like. Doesn't mean I dislike the other one. Y'all know I prefer Will Levis over Anthony Richardson. Doesn't mean I dislike Anthony Richardson. I'm not going to root for him, right? But let's kind of back this train up a little bit, and let's kind of go before what has become trendy. I was listening to CBS's mock draft, and they were talking about Will Levis. Pete Prisco was, and talked about that it seems, and he got very frustrated. It seems that it's become very convenient and very okay to just trash Will Levis, right? Just massacre him in the media about everything that he does, from the eating of the banana, the mayo in the coffee, the saying he had a cannon for Army, was going to show it off, right? The pictures, the selfies of like his build now, right? We've heard everybody talk about it. Colin Cowherd said that he makes him come across as a dumb jock with the build. I'm trying to remember who said it. It was another Colts podcast who said that he felt that the picture was more of him showing where his body was at the end of the season, how beat up he was, and how he is now, how he's healthy now, right? But you had Colin Cowherd beat up him for that. You didn't get beat up, obviously, because people think he's a dumb jock because of the stuff that he does, right? He opted out of the Senior Bowl, which wasn't a good look. A personal preference of mine is you had people talk about the fact that he hit the roof of his pro day, right? And people are like, oh, it's horrible. And then Anthony Richardson does it. It's like, oh, that guy, man, that guy, right? And then you hear people too, you hear people who kind of beat up on him talk about how poorly he played this year. And they get tired of hearing the excuses of, well, he didn't really have an O-line. He was learning his third offense in 3 years. He had a new offensive coordinator. He had lost all his receivers. He was injured. But then you turn it around on the flip side, right? And you hear people talk about Anthony Richardson and go, why didn't he perform? Well, I mean, he did a great job. His receivers dropped a lot of balls. They had butter fingers. It's got nothing to do with him. There's a lot of excuses, but it's convenient and okay to make excuses for Anthony Richardson, and it's not for Will Levis. Yet again, I'm saying this is that I can argue both sides of the coin with this. I'm okay. I have my preference, but I'm okay with who the Colts draft, right? I'm not going to burn down the mic in here and stop doing the show just because they don't draft Will Levis and they draft Anthony Richardson, right? But it's become convenient and okay and fun for a lot of people to bash this guy, right? But let's back this up. Pete Prisco, and this is kind of what inspired me a little bit because of the private workout, and we can say what we want. We've heard Zach Kiefer. We've heard Stephen Holder. And my dudes, right? Like I know that like Rashad has mentioned over at Horseshoe Huddle has mentioned that they like him. We've heard a lot of people say they really do like him. So it's not a facade that they sent everybody down here to see him in Lexington. But let's trace this back. And Pete Prisco on the CPS one talked about it and said, this is eerily similar. And I want to preface it that I'm not saying he's this dude, right? Very, very similar to Josh Allen coming out of Wyoming, right? Sophomore season, redshirt sophomore season, Josh Allen balls out. Like just amazing, right? He's going to be the number one pick. He decides to go back. And I tweeted this out because I was just curious. Would you draft this player in the top 10? His senior year, he comes back. And he does about 1,800 yards passing, 16 touchdowns, 6 picks, 200 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns, 56 completion percentage, right? And his team goes 8-5. And he got beat up for it. And that's at Wyoming, right? That's at Wyoming that he put up those stats. And he still got picked to the top 10 because you looked at the potential that he had, right? But then you turned it around. And yet again, I am not saying that Will Levis is Josh Allen. He's not. Josh Allen's like a unicorn. That's like the argument, he's a 56% completion percentage passer in college. And he made this tremendous jump in his second year with Dayball and just kind of was an MVP candidate. And it's like saying, well, that's just the normal thing that happens. And it's really not. Now, Will Levis, let's look at his stats, right? Will Levis, his junior year, that's the one I tell you guys all the time. Go back and watch his junior year stats when he wasn't injured, when he had an O-line, when he had receivers, right? He had 2,800 yards passing, 24 touchdowns, 13 picks, right? Then you go to this year when he wasn't healthy. He didn't really have an O-line. And I'm listening to 107.5 The Fan, Kevin Bowen and Jake Query in the morning. They had a beat reporter from Kentucky on, and he was talking about this. I mean, it was a turnstile, and the new offensive coordinator didn't want him to run, didn't want him to get hurt, and it resulted in him this year having 2,400 yards passing, 19 touchdowns, and 10 picks. And they went 7-6, I believe. That's not as big a drop-off as Josh Allen had. That's in the SEC, too. And I like to point out to people, too, that he had at one point people saying that they were like, before he got hurt in the Ole Miss game, he had them 4-0 and ranked to the top 10 at Kentucky. I mean, it's become so convenient to hate on this dude. And I like that a lot of my contemporaries, a lot of the people who do these shows, Derek and Cody and Drake and Rashad, and all of them are coming around now too and saying the same thing, that, I mean, they like Anthony Richardson more, but no one's going to hate if they draft Will Levis. I mean, look what he did. And this is an offense that didn't want him to run the ball, right? And he didn't. And this is a guy who had foot problems, shoulder problems, finger problems, back. I mean, it was everything. He was just beat up. He had nobody else on the team, right? So why should the Colts draft him? Yet again, not saying he's Josh Allen. I'm not. I am not. I think he fits what the Colts could want to do. I think they're very interested. This is the first that we know of. I'm sure they sent this contingent because they were in Gainesville yesterday to look at Anthony Richardson. We know they're both coming in for their top 30 visit in the next week or two. But I'm sitting here going, this is the first guy that Shane Steichen has went and gone and looked at. The number one thing that Shane Steichen has talked about throughout, right, has been he wants a guy that is just all ball, just obsessed with it. And everything you hear from every person you talk to or you listen to who's been around that Kentucky program, That's this dude, man. Like, this dude is all ball and wants to play. I'm not saying that I think they're gonna pick him. I don't know. I have no clue. Anybody who tells you that they have an idea are lying to your face because nobody knows what they're doing. I'm saying that he's my pick. I've told you guys that. CJ Stroud jumped above him, but Stroud's not gonna be there. I'm taking Will Levis. I think that under the right quarterback coach, under the right head coach, which is Steichen, I think he thrives. I think he does improve. And the number one thing that Steichen continued to talk about was accuracy. Accuracy, accuracy, accuracy. It's so important to be able to put the ball where you want it. And he completed his last year 65%. The year before, 66%. It's a lot higher than Anthony Richardson's 53% that he threw for this past year, right? I'm just saying, you guys, like, we fling a ton of mud during the lying season towards anyone who has a differing opinion. In the end, when the day comes and they drop that card and whoever they pick, we're all going to still be Colts fans. We're all going to root for whoever the quarterback is. I'm just saying, if it is Will Levis, don't burn the bridge down, man. I think he's going to be good. I think he could be really good. I think they are very interested in him. I know they sent a lot of people. I know they probably sent a lot of people to Richardson. We know they sent a ton of people to games this past year for Richardson. We know they've been scouting Will Levis for the last, from what we've heard, 2 years, 2021 and last year. We know that Mark Stoops came out and said that they've done a ton of research on him, and that's all he would really say. So they do like him. I hate to tell you guys that, and they may just pick him. So you might want to settle up, do a little bit more research than just watching the low lights that you see on Twitter. Do a little bit of research on why he was that way. It's not excuses. You can't give excuses to Anthony Richardson that he's throwing the ball too damn hard, and that's why people drop the passes, and then be upset because people are trying to give excuses for the fact that Will Levis had no playmakers on his team at all. Like, you can't do one and the other. You can't make, I mean, it's what we do, but you can't make excuses for one and be upset because people make excuses for the other. So I want to hear from you guys. What do y'all think? What do you think of the amount of people? What do you think of the fact that it got leaked? What do you think of the fact that we've heard that they actually really do like him? Would you be okay with it? Any poll I've ever run where I asked between him and Anthony Richardson, it's overwhelmingly Richardson. But I want to hear from you guys in the comments. Drop it in the comments. I love you guys, man. And I want to give a shout out here at the end of the episode to my partner in crime, my man Zach, who's been holding it down for me, who I've not been able to be on the live stream the last few weeks. So, my wife has been in South Korea. She actually comes back this week, so I'm very excited about that. I've missed her very much, but he's held it down. I'm recharged. I'm ready to go. We got 3 weeks, 21 days as of the recording of this till the draft. I'm excited, man. And as always, I love you. I know Zach loves you. Go Colts. I'm out.